Welcome to the Femininja Project. I am your host, Cheryl I Love, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the Femininja Project. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Femininja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And today's guest is a remarkable woman. Her name is Anne Feustel. She is an author, a freelance writer, editor, content creator, transcriber, and data entry specialist. She is also a powerful advocate for mental health and the author of the book, Our Favorite Movies: How Films Affect Our Mental Health. Anne, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I have been pretty much hounding you for a while. I've been wanting to have you on the show probably for a little over a year. It was even before the pandemic hit. So I'm glad I finally was able to get you on the show. You have such an amazing story of dealing with mental illness yourself and how you became an advocate for mental health and well-being. So I am just going to turn it over to you and say, just tell us your story.
Sure. Well, I'll go all the way back to when I was a child because I've been dealing with mental health issues since I was at least 10 years old.
Wow.
Been dealing with depression and anxiety since that time, and I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 22. And I basically, throughout the entire life, I realized that movies have been one of my coping strategies, one of the things that have kept me sane and alive and able to, face the world kind of thing. So movies have always been there for me, and I've always had to deal with mental health issues. And I've worked at the Colorado Crisis and Support Line for a year from 2015 to 2016. And I loved it there. It was amazing. But what happened was that I got burnt out, and it was a tough job. So the start of my author's journey was in 2017, right after I had left the crisis line. I decided I wanted to stay somewhere in mental health without being what you might call a frontline worker. Mm-hmm. So I decided I was going to write about mental health, and I got the idea for the book and, started writing it and started researching what's called cinematherapy.
Oh, so how did you get started? I mean, you have a career as a writer. Is that something that you went to school for, or did you just kind of fall into that as a natural talent and a natural skill? Some people are just really good at writing and editing and transcribing.
Yeah, that's a natural talent and skill. My degree, I did get a bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in psychology. Mm-hmm. So I know my human behavior stuff, but as far as the writing, it's something I've been doing since I was a child. It's another thing that has gotten me through has been writing. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the loves of my life. But I don't have a formal degree in English or in creative writing, anything like that.
Well, that's what I was wondering, if the writing was another form of an outlet for you as far as managing, like the mood swings and that type of thing. Just taking pen to paper, how did that help you?
Well, it helped me process is one thing. When I was a kid, I would write, fiction. You don't really write that much nonfiction when you're a kid necessarily. A lot of short stories. I wrote a short novel when I was 14. Wasn't published, but I wrote it. And had this book club that I was part of with a bunch of adults who were critiquing the book and everything. So it was, it wasn't something I just did on my own. I, talked to adults and different things about it. Mm-hmm. But writing's always been there for me. Mm-hmm. It's just something that does so much for me. And like I said, it's a way to process things. It's a way to see if I can affect other people and help them through things.
I'm just curious, do you still have the novel to this day?
I don't know where it is. It might have been thrown out, actually, because I didn't take it with me when I left, my parents' house, and my mother likes to clean things out very well. So
And we know your mother very well. I know you do, but I do as well. She's a friend of mine, and she was actually a guest on the show recently. I can't remember which episode it was, but yeah, she's an absolutely delightful lady. And there's another thing about your background that I found absolutely fascinating, and that is the data entry, because you even said in your own words that a lot of people find data entry tedious and frustrating. Oh, yes, indeed. I understand those words very well. But for you, you find it soothing.
yeah. So yeah, that sounds really weird, right? So I've had several jobs over the years, and then with my own business where I do data entry, and it's just I get in the groove of it. I can listen to music or a podcast, and I just sort of do it, and it just is kind of soothing how simple it is. It's hard to describe really, but it's just something about the data entry just sort of puts me into almost like a Zen thing.
Simple for you. For some people, we find it like a whole different world. I can't even consider doing it. But I'm wondering if at some level, because you have this incredible creative side to you with the writing, but I wonder if that's maybe an analytical part of you, or maybe it's even just creating order out of chaos.
I think it's probably both. Well, I mean, I think it's the analytical. I think it's the order out of chaos. Yeah, so I think it's definitely both of those. Because I definitely have an analytical part of me. If you do like a Myers-Briggs with the thinking, feeling, are you more on the thinking side? Are you more on the feeling side? I'm right there in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm tapped into both those sides of my brain / personality.
Okay. So when you did start writing the book, you got the idea, did it just come to you in the middle of the night, or was it like a slow burn of I'm thinking, I really want to help impact other people in your journey of helping being an advocate for mental health? Or was it something, I mean, how did it come about?
Sure. So part it was actually it wasn't just me. I was definitely helped along in this. So I had read a book a long time ago about cinematherapy. And so I knew a little bit about it, and knew I wanted to somehow go with mental health and movies, something where I was connecting with these movies. And my first inclination was to go, and I'm working on a second book with this, but to talk about movies with mental health themes. I had talked to somebody who I met through the Alternative Business Networking Group, which is a group that I've been going to since 2017. And she was probably among the first people I met back in 2017 when I started working on the book. And she's like, well, why don't you make it more personal? Why don't you talk more about what you grew up with, or what, the movies that are most impactful to you, not having to be about mental health. So I definitely had help with that. But I always wanted to write a book. And so, yeah, that's basically how it came to be. And I probably spent a month or two thinking about what exactly I wanted to write about.
How long did it take for you to write the book?
So I did a lot of watching of movies and journaling and such in 2017. And then I started typing that up in 2018, doing more research, that kind of thing. It took me about, from when I started typing to when we started editing the book, was about 10 months.
Wow. That's actually pretty fast.
Yeah. I was really into it.
Well, and it sounds like a great way, a fun way to do research to write a book is watch movies and then journal about it,
Exactly.
big bowl of popcorn next to you and stuff. It sounds like a really fun book to write.
It was a lot of fun. I watched the 12 movies that are in the book, I watched them all 3 times.
Oh.
Just to make sure I got everything in there. The first time through was to make sure it was a movie I wanted to put in the book, because I watched probably about 20 movies just to see, is this something I want to put in the book? I have this thing where I talk about caveats and triggers in the book. So I wanted to make sure, and what I call the ick factor. The ick factor is basically, how does it affect my mental health? How much does it affect my mental health versus are there things in it like sexism, racism, fat phobia, that kind of thing, or just things that I just feel like ick a little bit about. So I wanted to make sure it was, way down here, very low when it comes to ick factor and very high when it comes to all the positives. So that's why I had to watch all these movies to make sure, this is something that I think is going to be good for everybody to watch.
Well, it's a wonderful idea and a terrific book, because everybody has had that experience where they maybe are in a bad mood or whatever. They go to a movie and you walk out just feeling completely different, uplifted and encouraged. And on the other hand, you might see a movie that you actually have to walk out of. I've done that before.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't watch this. This isn't good for me. And just, I would leave. I remember one time just walking out and waiting for my husband in the lobby saying, take your time. I don't care. I'll just sit here and wait for you.
I worked in a movie theater as a teenager, and there were definitely people who walked out of movies that I noticed. The one that I actually saw the most walking out of was Saving Private Ryan.
Oh.
And that was for 2 reasons. One was that a lot of people couldn't handle, that was sort of one of the first sort of those handheld cameras that were a little bit shaky for that first person kind of stuff. And people, they got like physically sick, like after watching that, some of them, or get headaches, or maybe not, they would have nausea and different things. And also just how violent it was. So yeah, that's something I've had to, I don't know if I've ever walked out of the theater, but I've stopped watching movies for sure.
Well, the other thing I wanted to point out, and this isn't in your bio, but it's something that I remember hearing you say when I heard you speak at a networking group. Again, it was over a year ago because it was before COVID. And the title of it is, your book is Our Favorite Movies. And you had said when you were giving us your presentation that the reason why you did that was because you and your sister would actually watch movies together and kind of bond together over some of the movies when maybe you weren't getting along in other aspects or other areas of your life.
Right, exactly. Yeah. My sister and I, 10 of the 12 movies are our favorite movies in the book. They're movies that we've watched endless times. Probably the one we watched the most together that's in the book is When Harry Met Sally. But, other movies, Fried Green Tomatoes, A League of Their Own, Princess Bride, or The Princess Bride. Anyway, all these movies that I have in the book, Contact, Little Women, are ones that both of us watched over and over and over. And we really connected through watching these movies, and we really connect through quoting these movies to each other. And that's one thing for movies, is that not only do you get to have that emotional connection with the people you watch it with, but you can have the connection with other people who are fans of the movie, or you get to have that connection when you're in the movie theater watching it with other people, right? Because that's a shared collective experience. So, yeah.
So did she collaborate with you at all on the book, except to say, you go, girl?
She did. She was one of my beta readers. So that meant that she read it before. For those of you who don't know what a beta reader is, that's basically somebody who reads the book before it's published to give insider guidance. So she gave me a few things, like talking about, one of the chapters is A League of Their Own. And I talk about the 2 sisters in A League of Their Own, and how that relates to me and my sister. And so she gave me a little bit of feedback on that particular chapter.
That is really quite amazing, actually. So with all of the movies, do you have kind of like life's lessons as you're writing about it or critiquing the movie or just giving your viewpoint about it, that people can really take home and take to heart and apply to other aspects of their lives?
Yeah, yes, I do. So each chapter I talk about my thoughts on the movie, and then I talk about how it affects me mental health wise, and therefore how it could affect other people. Mm-hmm. And I also put in some fun facts for a little bit of mm-hmm. joy as well. But it's really what I want to do is help people find ways to use movies as a tool for their mental health. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about, for the mood, for for uplifting you, for helping you with anxiety and things like that, but also sort of ways to help you sort of look at your personal growth, look at different interpersonal issues you might have, that kind of thing. And look at, for instance, maybe, what does this character tell me about? I see this character in this movie. For instance, in The Princess Bride, there's Fezzik that was played by Andre the Giant. The fact that I think he's my favorite character in the movie, he's amazing. What does that say about me personally, that I relate so much to him and I love him so much?
Mm-hmm. It is a great movie, and that's a great character. And every time I hear The Princess Bride, I think of As You Wish. Is that the phrase? As you wish. So we're still dealing with COVID. It's been a year. It's been over a year. And there has been a lot of mental health issues that have cropped up for people maybe who have never even experienced mental health issues before. But when you're under this much stress and this much uncertainty in your life, what kind of advice could you give for people who might be experiencing anxiety, depression for the first time, dramatic mood swings even because of what's going on around you? And, I have my own thoughts that maybe we ought to turn off the TV more often and not listen to the news, because it's never really good, and start trying to listen to things that are a little bit more positive and uplifting.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways I could go with that question. So I'll just go with what's top of mind. And one of them is, I would research coping skills. That's one thing that I think would be really great. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times people don't realize the things they're doing that are good for them, that are coping skills, and then they can do more of them if they realize, hey, this is a positive effect on me, this is good for me, and I should keep doing this, and consciously know I am taking care of myself when I'm doing this. So watching movies can be, and I would say certain movies. I think in general, the movies that have less violence, that are not sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, transphobic, fatphobic, etc., racist, sexist, staying away from those kind of movies. Working more, it doesn't have to necessarily be an upbeat movie. It can be a drama that makes you cry, because sometimes you need to cry. Sometimes that's a really good thing. But finding ways to maybe get to the more positive or neutral messages, that can be helpful. Mm-hmm. So if you're a movie lover or you like to watch TV, working towards those kinds of things can be really helpful, especially if you're in the really dark place where you don't have the energy to do things like yoga, or running or whatever. You're feeling a little bit worried about leaving the house or that kind of thing. There are a lot of things you can do in your house that can be helpful. So I encourage you to watch movies if that's something you'd like to do, or just, looking at cat videos can be helpful. And like I said, if you have more energy, then things like yoga, different exercise, walking is great. But I think just in general, when it comes to, dealing with mental health issues, perhaps for the first time, I just want to say it sucks and you're not alone. And it sucks that you have to deal with this. And I would say, reach out to people, do your best to do that. I was thinking of the crisis hotline, and one thing that is really important is that if you are in crisis or if you're in need of support, there are hotlines and what's called warm lines all over. So one thing I would suggest is that if you are just really in need of somebody to talk to and it's completely free, I would suggest calling 1-800-273-8255. Like I said, I've been dealing with this for a long time, and I really want to make it clear also that you're not weak if you're dealing with these kind of things. This is something that's just going on with you. It's a really tough time. So just know that you're not alone, and please reach out to that line, to other people, etc., if you're going through stuff.
Thank you so much for saying that, and thank you for giving that phone number, because I think it's really important. One of the things that I think that you're talking about is awareness and being able to pay attention to yourself, because this might have been like a very slow burn and people might not be aware of what's happening to them. So to really pay attention to how you are feeling, and if you are starting to feel low and down, and notice how you feel when you do watch a movie or watch something on TV versus just having some silence, or getting up and doing a walk outdoors if you feel safe going outside or something like that, some light exercise. But it's really all about having the power to take care of yourself and to give yourself what you need rather than to lose control.
Exactly.
And give that power up to a force that you don't even really understand, especially if you've never dealt with it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's super important. It's super important to do that. So I'm just, it's a hard world right now. So
yes, it is.
I just hope everybody can take care of themselves and know, there's a lot of stigma attached to mental health issues, a lot of stigma. So,
it's so unfortunate, especially at this point. I mean, we know so much more about it and how many people are affected by mental health issues. So it's sad that there still really is that kind of stigma. And that's another reason why I wanted to have you on the show, because I love hearing your insights and hearing your perspective. And the fact that if we talk about it more, then people are willing to admit that they need some help and they are having problems. And that's all about acceptance. I'm not a freak. It's just going through a rough time. I need some support. I need some help, and being able to pay attention to it.
Exactly.
And to respond in a positive and a helpful way rather than destructive.
Yeah.
So exactly. How can people find your book, or where can they find it?
So you can find it on Amazon. Mm-hmm. Again, the title is Our Favorite Movies, How Films Affect Our Mental Health.
And you say you do have another one coming up eventually?
Yes. It's sort of slow going because I injured my shoulder about a year ago, so I haven't been able to do as much work on it as I would have liked. But basically, the second one is the focus is on films with mental health issues. Mm-hmm. So my working title is My Favorite Mental Health Films.
Do you have a website?
Yes, my website is We Are Writing Wisely.
You do an awful lot of work as far as with the writing and the editing. And then, of course, as I giggle, the data entry, that just cracks me up. It's like somebody who does that for entertainment, I really just, admire that.
Yeah, so I do offer quite a few different things, and I work on projects anywhere from the shortest blog to a book. So my main thing that I do is the editing, and the main main type of thing I do is working on blogs and newsletters.
What else could you tell us, either about the book or about your own personal journey, or what you could share with other people right now?
Well, I can tell you all the movies in the book would be one thing. So what I've got in the book is Inside Out, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Fried Green Tomatoes, A League of Their Own, Defending Your Life, Princess Bride, Big Business, Tommy Boy, Joe versus the Volcano, When Harry Met Sally, Contact, and Little Women 1994 version. And one of the fun things, I mentioned this before, are the fun facts that I have about each movie. And there's lots of great stuff, including the fact that for The Princess Bride, the dueling scene was almost completely done without any kind of stunt people in it.
Oh.
Which is basically never happens. Like even when the old, sort of the more old-fashioned movies that would have these dueling scenes, like Errol Flynn was somebody who was in them, and he would have a good portion of that with body doubles. So these guys, they trained for months and months and months.
Jeez.
And that was before they filmed. And then when they were filming, every extra minute they were not in scenes, they were practicing. So it was just the fact that they put so much into that was just mind-blowing. And there's other fun things about The Princess Bride, like the fact that Billy Crystal improvised almost all of his lines. And nobody on the set could deal with the laughter. Like they were just so, it was so funny that Mandy Patinkin, who played Inigo, he cracked a rib he bruised a rib because he was holding in his gut so hard to keep from laughing during the scene.
Oh my goodness.
And like the director had to go away from the set where it was happening because he was laughing so much.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny.
It was just, there's a lot of great things about The Princess Bride. I could go on and on and on about that, but I have more fun facts about that movie.
I love the fact that they were training so hard so they could do their own stunts and even practicing when they weren't on set. And the first thing that popped into my mind was no wonder why they looked like they were in such great shape.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that they didn't do was there was a couple of like somersaults and a sort of a flip thing. But other than that was all done.
Could you tell us a fun fact about Fried Green Tomatoes? Because that was one of my favorite movies. I can sit and watch it over and over and over again, and I laugh and I cry and I just love it. So if you have a fun fact, you can share with us.
So it's interesting for Fried Green Tomatoes. So the original book, Ruth and Edgy were a couple, but they aren't in the movie. But there's a lot of like, are they or aren't they? Mm-hmm. But they weren't actually, so not really so fun, but they weren't allowed. The producers the studio didn't want them to have it be like as a couple. But obviously the director and the writer, who was also the writer of the novel, was able to incorporate some of that stuff in. Mm-hmm. And the scene where there's the food fight in the kitchen. So the director said that was like a stand-in for a love scene.
Ah.
So that would be Fried Green Tomatoes and sort of that. And then sort of not quite a fun fact, but something that I found that was really great is with Cicely Tyson was in that movie, who recently passed away. Mm-hmm. And I just adored her in that. So when I heard that Cicely Tyson had passed, I was like, oh, Sipsy.
Oh, Sipsy, she was the greatest character in the world.
Yes.
I just loved her. But it's so funny when you mentioned the food fight, because that still cracks me up every single time. My favorite part was the look on Grady, the sheriff or the deputy or whatever, mm-hmm. on his face as he was watching. And then finally says, Miss Ruth, I think that Miss Ruth, I think that Edgy's been a bad influence on you.
And then she takes the chocolate frosting and then wipes it all over down.
Yeah, that was great. Wonderful movie. So I just want to circle back a little bit, or go back in time, because it was like, even when you were a child, you realized that when you were watching certain movies that your mood would improve. How young were you when you were?
Well, no, it wasn't when I was a kid. It actually wasn't until I was 19 that I really realized exactly how it was. I mean, I think that I don't know how conscious. I can tell you for sure, I knew for sure about The Princess Bride and how it affected me when I was 19, because they were not sure if I had bipolar disorder at that point. that was a possibility. They didn't, like I said, they didn't diagnose me until I was 22. But the first time I can tell you for sure I realized that the movie was helping me was I was manic. For those of you who don't know what manic means, at least for me, what it was that my brain was racing. I was not really coherent. I was super high amounts of energy, not sleeping, just sometimes not making any sense and going a million miles a minute, all this kind of stuff. So things were not going so well for me. And I started watching The Princess Bride, calm me down. I wasn't really feeling manic while I was watching it. And I realized, hey, this is something that really affects my symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I was able to go into that world and not have to deal with what was going on inside of my mind. And I had been there so many times in the world of The Princess Bride that I was able to, get out of my head. Mm-hmm. So that's when that was what I call my movie epiphany.
How long would you say that you had that kind of effect, after the movie ended? I mean, as soon as the movie was over, were you able to maintain that level of like calm and homeostasis?
I think it was at least for several hours afterwards. But even just having several hours of a break, was better than having no break. Yeah. And that's one thing. That's an interesting question. And to be honest, I don't remember exactly how long it was, whether it was just a few hours or whether it was like a day or what. But I know for sure it was at least while I watched the movie, and for sure at least a few hours afterwards.
Do you get that same kind of effect when you're reading a feel-good book?
I can. It depends on the book, but I think it's easier for me to tap into it. Mm-hmm. It's more immediate if I'm watching a movie.
So many more senses, I think, are incorporated in a movie.
Exactly.
It's more of a somatosensory experience. So one other question I did have for you, because you said you were diagnosed finally with bipolar disorder when you were 22. Was it a relief almost to find out that there was a reason or a cause for the symptoms that you had been experiencing and struggling with all your life?
Yeah. I wasn't struggling with the mania all my life. Mm-hmm. That more came in my late teens, and I had been diagnosed with depression at age 18. But it was definitely a relief to get a diagnosis. And I also was diagnosed around the same time with generalized anxiety disorder. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a relief, but it was sort of a step thing. Because as I go into the book, I was hospitalized several times when I was in college. Mm-hmm. So we knew there was something going on. We just didn't know exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. And even I would say exactly what it was is something that's, psychology is part art, part science. So, I might have a different psychiatrist or a different therapist who might give me a different diagnosis than what I have right now. But as far as having a diagnosis, I would say at age 22, it was definitely somewhat of a relief, but it was somewhat of like, I knew it was coming kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one more time, I just want to say the title of your book is Our Favorite Movies, and the subtitle is How Films Affect Our Mental Health. And one more time, if you can give us your website, please.
Sure, it is wearewritingwisely.com.
And do you have any final pearls of wisdom or any advice that you want to leave us with today?
I'm trying to think if I have any pearls of wisdom that I haven't shared so far. I think just take care of yourself. You're an important person. Might not always feel like it. You might have a lot of different things going on. And I understand that I too have a lot of things going on, and it's not the easiest world out there, but I hope that you keep, pushing. I hope you look for the things that are going to be the best for you to watch, to do, to be. And I really know what it's like to deal with this kind of stuff. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have stuff to deal with.
Thank you. Those were wonderful and beautiful and precious words of wisdom. So that's pretty good. I put you on the spot there and you handled that. It was just beautiful. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Anne. I sincerely appreciate it. You're just an amazing person. I love talking to you, and thank you for finally coming on the show. It's been wonderful.
Oh, that feels good. Thank you, Cheryl.
We're all about feel good stuff because there's too much other stuff going around in the world, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thank you again, Anne. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And make sure you check out Anne's book, Our Favorite Movies. You're going to love it. And she's a wonderful person. Reach out to her, check out her website, send her an email, just connect with her because she does have some great things to say. And make sure that you take care of yourself, pay attention to yourself, reach out for help if you need it, and do the things that are really good for you and make you feel better, and do ask for help. That is the way of the Femininja. And that's a wrap on another episode of the Femininja Project. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.